A Bengal tiger discovers a wildlife officer trapped in a poacher's snare. The events that follow will leave you astounded. The pain-filled cries of forest ranger Joseph Mangji pierced through the thick Indian wilderness, as the metal teeth of an illegal hunting trap clamped down on his leg with devastating power, rendering him immobile and wounded in one of Earth's most perilous tiger habitats, where help appeared unreachable until a 400-pound Bengal tiger called Raja stepped out from the vegetation and performed an act that would transform everything researchers believed they understood about big cat behavior. You truly need to witness this remarkable account from beginning to end, because the tiger's actions toward this trapped ranger will demolish every preconception you hold about predatory instincts and demonstrate that kindness emerges in the most surprising ways. Therefore, please click that like button and subscribe to our channel, because this authentic account shows that bravery crosses species lines when survival is at stake. The ordeal commenced at 11:47 in the morning on a scorching August day in the Bandhavgarh National Park, located in Madhya Pradesh, India, where Joseph had been performing an anti-poaching inspection as part of his responsibilities with the Indian Forest Service. The 34-year-old officer had committed 8 years of his career to safeguarding the park's threatened tigers from unlawful hunters who employed vicious traps and wire snares to capture these majestic animals for their skeletal remains and other valuable parts. Joseph was tracking a suspected poacher's path through thick sal forest vegetation when catastrophe occurred with the abruptness that marks most wilderness accidents. A skillfully hidden leg snare designed by lawbreakers to catch tigers clamped around his right leg with devastating pressure that instantly fractured bones and ruptured blood vessels. "Help me, somebody help me," Joseph cried out in Swahili and English as the gravity of his predicament became clear. He was ensnared alone in tiger country, bleeding profusely with no method to relay his position to his co-workers who were performing patrols many miles distant in other parts of the extensive preserve. The steel snare had been constructed with sufficient power to restrain a 400-pound tiger, rendering freedom impossible even for a robust human. The jagged edges dug deeply into Joseph's limb with each motion, while the isolated placement of the trap indicated that his prospects of assistance were slim before blood depletion or predator confrontation became lethal. As Joseph fought against the snare that imprisoned him, he detected the noises of nearing wildlife through the jungle foliage. In Bandhavgarh, where tiger numbers were among the densest in India, the smell of human blood would draw predators within a few hours. His officer preparation had instructed him that being defenseless in tiger regions during daytime was essentially a fatal situation. But the initial creature to examine Joseph's distress sounds was not what he anticipated. Raja, a spectacular male Bengal tiger measuring nearly 400 pounds, appeared from the dense greenery with the quiet elegance that characterized his species as the supreme apex hunter. The tiger's golden eyes locked onto the trapped individual with a focus that should have triggered absolute fear. "Oh God, no," Joseph murmured as he observed the enormous predator advancing toward his vulnerable location. "This is how my life ends." Raja embodied everything that Joseph's preparation had instructed him to dread about direct encounters with wild tigers. The impressive feline was in his peak condition, with powerful muscles moving beneath his orange and black patterned fur, enormous canine fangs capable of shattering human bones and talons that could eviscerate victims with one strike. But as Raja came within attacking range, something remarkable occurred that contradicted every concept Joseph had absorbed about tiger conduct during his years of wildlife education. Rather than exhibiting the hostile hunting conduct characteristic of tigers meeting defenseless targets, Raja displayed inquisitiveness and what seemed to be worry for the trapped individual. "He's not attacking," Joseph comprehended with increasing astonishment as he observed Raja's physical signals. "This tiger is examining my predicament, not readying to eliminate me. His stance reveals interest and assessment, not killing drive." Raja moved in circles around Joseph's spot multiple times, inspecting the snare and the individual's state with perceptive golden eyes that appeared to evaluate the circumstances with noteworthy mental capacity. The tiger's conduct indicated problem-solving examination rather than hunting stalking, as though he was attempting to comprehend what had occurred and why the individual was incapable of movement. "You're attempting to determine what's troubling me, correct?" Joseph spoke gently, his tone containing amazement despite his critical circumstances. "You can perceive that I'm injured and ensnared." The tiger's reaction was unmatched in wildlife study documentation. Raja moved toward the steel snare and started inspecting its construction with his acute nose and paws, conduct that indicated he grasped that the apparatus was producing Joseph's suffering and blocking his departure. Dr. Priya Sharma from the Wildlife Institute of India would subsequently characterize Raja's movements as the most advanced problem-solving conduct ever recorded in wild tigers. The large feline was exhibiting mental capacities that questioned basic suppositions about predator awareness and emotional range. "This tiger is revealing empathy and analytical reasoning that we weren't aware existed in wild predators," Dr. Sharma would document after examining video documentation of the occurrence. "He's not merely acknowledging human suffering, he's actively attempting to comprehend and tackle the source of that suffering." Raja's inspection of the snare proceeded for almost an hour, during which the tiger exhibited tolerance and concentration that impressed Joseph. The massive predator utilized his strong paws to adjust components of the snare structure while producing soft sounds that appeared intended to convey comfort to the trapped individual. "He's attempting to assist me," Joseph understood as he watched Raja manipulate the snare. "This wild tiger is genuinely trying a rescue. This contradicts everything we comprehend about predator conduct, but he's working to liberate me from this snare." The most extraordinary instance arrived when Raja managed in somewhat loosening the snare structure utilizing methods that exhibited comprehension of cause and result connections. While he couldn't completely disengage the apparatus, his attempts had diminished the crushing force on Joseph's leg sufficiently to re-establish some blood flow and decrease the instant danger of severe amputation. "You accomplished it," Joseph expressed through tears of thankfulness and amazement. "You genuinely assisted me. I don't comprehend how this is achievable, but you're preserving my life." But Raja's help was far from concluded. The tiger appeared to acknowledge that Joseph's rescue demanded human involvement beyond his powers, and he started showing conduct that indicated he was attempting to draw attention to their spot. Raja's subsequent movements would exhibit intelligence and tactical reasoning that questioned every scientific framework of tiger mental capabilities. The impressive predator started traveling in expanding circles around Joseph's spot, producing loud sounds that were obviously intended to draw notice from other individuals who might be within audible distance of his powerful roars. "He's summoning help," Joseph comprehended with mounting amazement as he observed Raja's intentional signaling conduct. "This tiger grasps that I require human aid, and he's attempting to bring my coworkers to this spot." The degree of logic he's exhibiting is remarkable. Dr. Vikram Singh, a wildlife researcher who had been examining Raja's conduct patterns for 3 years, would subsequently verify that the tiger's sounds during this occurrence were dissimilar to any noises recorded in his earlier behavioral collection. The roars possessed particular frequency characteristics and repetition arrangements that indicated deliberate communication efforts directed toward humans. Raja was fundamentally transmitting a distress message on behalf of the trapped officer, Dr. Singh documented in his later study publication. This constitutes the initial recorded instance of a wild tiger actively pursuing human aid for another organism. The mental advancement necessary for this conduct questions our complete comprehension of predator intelligence. The rescue mission that ensued was arranged by Raja's tactical location and sustained vocal direction. When Joseph's associate, Ranger Amit Patel, detected the atypical tiger sounds from almost 2 miles distant, Raja's conduct helped direct the rescue unit straight to the snare spot through thick jungle landscape that would typically demand hours to traverse. "I've never detected Raja produce sounds like that," Amit would subsequently inform park administration. His sounds were obviously distress signals, but they weren't communicating his own distress. He was summoning attention to another's crisis circumstance. When the rescue unit reached, they found Raja sustaining a defensive boundary around Joseph's spot, placing himself between the trapped individual and other wildlife that might present additional dangers. The tiger's conduct exhibited not only compassion, but strategic reasoning about thorough protection during a crisis circumstance. Raja was functioning as Joseph's guardian while concurrently summoning rescue aid, Dr. Sharma noted as she examined the occurrence. This constitutes multitasking mental conduct that indicates planning capabilities and emotional commitment in human welfare that we never recognized existed in wild tigers. The most extraordinary instance arrived when the rescue unit needed to approach Joseph to sever the snare structure. Raja, who should have perceived multiple humans as a territorial danger, instead placed himself where he could oversee the rescue mission while permitting the unit complete access to the wounded officer. "This tiger is actively enabling a human rescue mission," Amit recorded as he labored to liberate Joseph from the snare. "He's not merely enduring our attendance. He's organizing with us to guarantee Joseph's protection. This degree of interspecies collaboration is unmatched in wildlife study." The snare extraction demanded advanced cutting implements and cautious handling to prevent additional injury to Joseph's seriously damaged leg. Throughout the complete process, Raja stayed watchful but composed, periodically producing soft sounds that appeared intended to comfort the wounded individual during painful instances of the rescue. "Raja was furnishing emotional assistance during my medical procedure," Joseph would subsequently declare to wildlife officials. When the pain was most intense during snare extraction, he would produce gentle sounds and shift closer to inform me he was still guarding me. This tiger revealed more sympathy than most individuals would in comparable situations. The effective removal disclosed the complete scope of Joseph's wounds, which comprised numerous breaks, serious tissue harm, and substantial blood depletion that would have become deadly without prompt medical action. Raja's initial loosening of the snare structure had been vital in averting severe amputation that would have resulted from prolonged blood flow limitation. Raja's mechanical involvement preserved Joseph's limb and potentially his existence, Dr. Singh informed the Indian Forest Service. His grasp of cause and result connections permitted him to diminish snare force in methods that averted the most disastrous injury results. But Raja's defensive conduct persisted even after Joseph's rescue was finished. As the medical unit readied to move the wounded officer to the closest medical center, Raja tracked the removal path for more than a mile, guaranteeing that no other predators menaced the defenseless individual during his departure from the wilderness. "That tiger accompanied our complete medical removal," Dr. Sarah Chen, the emergency doctor who addressed Joseph, informed to media sources covering the account. "He sustained defensive placement around our unit until we arrived at the park limit where our medical vehicle was standing. His conduct exhibited extended reasoning and dedication that contradicted every supposition about wild creature powers." The account of Raja's rescue became worldwide coverage within hours of Joseph's effective removal. Wildlife authorities from across the planet reached the Wildlife Institute of India, pursuing thorough records of tiger conduct that questioned basic suppositions about predator mentality and interspecies connections. But the most remarkable advancement arrived during Joseph's healing interval in the medical center. Raja started showing up daily at the forest boundary closest to the medical establishment, conduct that indicated he was observing Joseph's state and sustaining worry for the individual he had preserved. Raja has been arriving at the medical center boundary each day since Joseph's rescue, Park Administrator Dr. Rajesh Kumar informed to preservation officials. He's not revealing any territorial or predatory conduct. He seems to be monitoring Joseph's condition, which indicates emotional connection that extends far past the rescue occurrence. Joseph's healing demanded numerous operations to mend the considerable harm produced by the poacher's snare, but his endurance and ultimate restoration to complete movement was straightforwardly credited to Raja's initial involvement and the swift rescue that the tiger's conduct had enabled. Without Raja's help, Joseph would have perished in that wilderness, Dr. Chen declared in her medical documentation. The tiger's movements in loosening the snare, summoning assistance, and guarding the casualty during rescue were the essential elements that preserved this individual's existence. We're managing creature intelligence and sympathy that questions our grasp of awareness itself. The connection between Joseph and Raja had progressed from a chance meeting to something approximating authentic companionship between organisms. When Joseph was capable enough to resume light responsibilities at the park, Roger's conduct toward him exhibited acknowledgement and sustained defensive worry that impressed wildlife scholars examining their exchanges. Roger addresses Joseph distinctly from other individuals, Dr. Singh recorded as he watched their post-rescue meetings. He reveals comfortable, amicable conduct that's characteristically reserved for family associates in tiger social arrangement. This rescue formed an emotional connection that surpasses typical predator-human connections and furnishes perspectives into tiger awareness that are transforming our comprehension of these impressive creatures. The account that would establish Roger and Joseph's connection as one of the most remarkable human-creature connections ever recorded attained its peak 6 months after the initial rescue, when the officer's resumption to active responsibility would result in a finding that demonstrated the tiger's intelligence reached far past rescue missions to comprise active involvement in wildlife preservation attempts that would transform anti-poaching approaches throughout India. Joseph's healing had been exceptional, with numerous operations effectively mending the harm produced by the poacher's snare. His resolve to resume to the field was inspired not solely by his commitment to wildlife security, but by his wish to continue his distinctive connection with Roger, whose sustained attendance near the medical center during his healing had exhibited devotion that surpassed typical creature conduct configurations. Roger never ceased monitoring me during my 3 months of medical treatment, Joseph informed the recording team from BBC Wildlife that had arrived to document their account. Each day, without exception, he would show up at the forest boundary where he could observe the medical center structure. The medical personnel began naming him my protective spirit because of his constant watchfulness. When Joseph was ultimately approved for light responsibility, his initial task was to inspect the location where his mishap had transpired, joined by a complete protection unit and Dr. Singh, who desired to record Roger's response to the officer's restoration to the wilderness. What they found would alter comprehension of tiger mental capabilities and preservation capability. Roger's response to observing Joseph back in the forest was documented on camera and subsequently became one of the most observed wildlife recordings in Internet Chronicle. The massive tiger moved toward with evident acknowledgement and what could solely be characterized as delight, exhibiting emotional manifestation that questioned every supposition about predator awareness and social attachment powers. The meeting between Joseph and Roger revealed emotional profundity that matches human connections, Dr. Singh recorded as he documented the meeting. This tiger displayed happiness, comfort, and fondness that demonstrated emotional advancement exists in wild predators at degrees we're solely starting to grasp. But the most remarkable disclosure arrived when Roger started guiding Joseph and the study unit to spots throughout his region where supplementary poacher snares had been hidden. The tiger had seemingly been performing his own anti-poaching inspections during the months of Joseph's healing, recognizing and noting snare spots that he now desired to reveal to his human associate. Roger has been methodically finding and recording poaching apparatus throughout his region. Joseph comprehended as the tiger directed them to the 7th snare location in 2 days. He's transformed himself into an anti-poaching information resource, utilizing his territorial awareness and sensory powers to recognize dangers that our human units would never locate. The snares that Roger disclosed constituted a substantial unlawful hunting mission that had been targeting the park's tiger community for months. Without the tiger's information collection, numerous threatened predators would have succumbed to the hidden wire snares and steel traps that had been tactically positioned along animal paths and water locations. This tiger has individually revealed the biggest poaching scheme in Bandhavgarh's chronicle, Dr. Kumar informed to the Indian Ministry of Environment. His methodical recognition of snare spots has permitted us to eliminate a mission that was endangering the endurance of our complete tiger community. The association between Joseph and Roger developed into the most effective anti-poaching initiative ever executed in Indian wildlife preserves. The tiger's capacity to sense human invasion and recognize unlawful operations furnished early alert powers that surpassed any technical monitoring arrangement accessible to park officials. Raja can perceive poacher attendance from distances that our electronic observation apparatus can't equal, Joseph clarified to preservation officials as their joint initiative broadened. His territorial drives combined with his defensive connection with our officer units has formed an anti-poaching system that's more productive than anything we've accomplished utilizing conventional approaches. Over the subsequent year, the Joseph Raja Association produced the detention of more than 50 poachers and the seizure of armaments, snares, and creature components valued at millions of currency on worldwide illegal commerce. Their partnership had formed the most effective wildlife security initiative in India's preservation chronicle. But possibly the most extraordinary accomplishment was Raja's function in instructing other tigers to acknowledge and evade poaching dangers. His territorial interaction with bordering tigers seemed to comprise data distribution about snare spots and human hazards, forming a system of predator information that secured wildlife throughout the territory. Raja has fundamentally become a preservation instructor for other tigers in the vicinity, Dr. Sharma watched as she examined the broadening anti-poaching achievement. His capacity to relay danger data to other predators has formed a defensive system that reaches far past his own region. Presently, 3 years after Raja initially preserved Joseph's existence, their association persists to function as the basis for revolutionary methods to wildlife preservation that acknowledge creatures as perceptive partners rather than subjects demanding security. Their partnership has motivated comparable initiatives throughout Asia and Africa. Raja flourishes as both a wild tiger and preservation associate, sustaining his typical conduct while adding to the security of his organism through his distinctive connection with Joseph. His region has become the most secure location for tigers in all of India, with poaching occurrences diminished to nothing through their united attempts. The initial snare location where Joseph was captured has been transformed into the Raja Preservation Monument, where guests from across the planet arrive to discover about the tiger whose intelligence and sympathy transformed wildlife security. The monument functions as a representation of optimism for preservation attempts worldwide. Joseph persists his labor as a senior officer while also functioning as supervisor of the interspecies anti-poaching initiative, utilizing methods developed through his connection with Raja to instruct preservationists in constructing joint connections with wildlife throughout India's national park arrangement. Each morning, Raja persists his practice of gathering with Joseph to arrange their daily preservation operations, furnishing information about territorial dangers and laboring together to sustain the protection of Bandhavgarh's tiger community. Their daily exchanges furnish continuous perspectives into creature intelligence that persist to reform preservation discipline. The steel snare that almost eliminated Joseph has been maintained at the Preservation Monument as a prompt of the poaching dangers confronting India's wildlife. Adjacent to it stands a bronze figure of Raja and Joseph laboring together, constituting the association that demonstrated collaboration between individuals and creatures can surmount any obstacle when constructed on reciprocal regard and distributed dedication to preservation. The medical instruments and provisions that preserved Joseph's limb are exhibited at the monument alongside records of the anti-poaching achievements accomplished through his association with Raja, exhibiting how one rescue occurrence developed into a preservation transformation that has secured hundreds of tigers throughout India. If this remarkable authentic account of rescue, association, and revolutionary preservation has affected you as profoundly as it affected us, please click that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible authentic encounters that demonstrate the creature realm contains intelligence, devotion, and sympathy past our greatest conception. Recall, occasionally, the most improbable associations can accomplish the greatest preservation triumphs, and confidence between organisms can form security that no individual attempt alone could equal. The officer who was preserved by a tiger found that his rescue was merely the start of an association that would transform wildlife preservation and demonstrate that when individuals and creatures labor together with reciprocal regard and distributed intention, they can surmount any danger to the organic realm.